This episode discusses issues surrounding the fentanyl drug crisis that has affected communities nationwide. If you or someone you know is struggling from addiction or substance use disorder, additional resources are available in the show notes of today's episode. Listener discretion is advised.
He's, could be your next door neighbor. He could be your child. Jack knew not to do drugs. He had no intention of ever taking his life or anything like that. And this fentanyl is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. And people say, oh, I heard your son overdosed. I don't call that an overdose. I call that a poison. He was poisoned. He made a mistake. Dying should not be a consequence of making a really stupid mistake, being a teenager, being in college.
Welcome to the Mad Rush Podcast. I'm Trisha Addix, the original sorority rush consultant. While the stories I have to share are nothing short of astonishing, this podcast goes beyond the wild client tales and sorority life. I'll be engaging with fascinating guests from both within and outside the Greek world, uncovering the surprising connections that bind us all together. Join me for a journey that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. Welcome to Mad Rush. So today on Mad Rush, I want to talk about Jack O'Kelly. Jack was a student at the University of Georgia who died from taking one pill when he was out with friends while home for Thanksgiving break. That fatal pill he took was laced with fentanyl. Nancy Grace described Jack as scrubbed in sunshine. He was all great things. Fentanyl does not lurk in the shadows of the bad parts of town. Fentanyl is coming to us daily, and fentanyl is here. People who love their kids, kids who love their families, kids who love their friends, and kids who love life are affected, many times fatally, by this drug. It is important and imperative that we get this message out there. It is here. When I started this podcast, I wanted to talk about sorority rush and funny stories and give some advice. The last two episodes were much more than that, and today is much, much more than that. With me today is Jack O'Kelly's mom, Angela King. When I reached out to Angela to see if she'd be willing to come on and talk about this epidemic, she immediately said yes. Angela is channeling her grief and pain and is dedicated to the mission that Jack's death help others. She is dedicated to making sure that no more families have to go through what hers did. In preparing for today, I read some staggering and scary statistics about fentanyl, but Angela unfortunately knows this firsthand and is here to share what she knows. Welcome, Angela. Thank you seems to be the greatest understatement of the year, but thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to share your story in order to spread awareness of this horrible thing that we're facing. The floor is yours with our humble gratitude.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to speak to you. While it's very painful to talk about, sometimes more than others, it is so important to get this word out about drugs and, more importantly, about fentanyl and what is going on in this country right now. Fentanyl is the number one killer of people 18 to 45 in this country, and every 5 minutes, someone is dying of fentanyl poisoning. So we have a very major epidemic that we're in this country, and is happening everywhere. And unfortunately, it happened to us.
Can you explain, and I don't mean to take the floor away from you, and I won't do it again, but I was confused. So fentanyl is tainted fentanyl. Like fentanyl is something that, can you explain what it is and where it be? I mean, I know it's all bad, but can you explain? I didn't really know this before.
Yes. Well, fentanyl actually prescribed is a very powerful, important, useful drug when it's prescribed by a doctor. A lot of people with cancer have it, and I, have experienced it firsthand in the line of work that I do, seeing how good this drug can be when it's used in the correct conditions for people who are terminally ill and who are dying. It's very helpful. It's a pain reliever. It's an opioid. what has happened in the past, 10 years or so is it has become used as a filler for drugs, for illegal drug use. So it was coming from China to Mexico and Mexico to the US in the form of pills. They now are lacing marijuana, though, with fentanyl. It's evil what these drug dealers are doing, but it's cheaper. It's a cheaper alternative as a filler. So fentanyl is cheaper than, say, a real drug that you could go. None of this stuff is real. All this stuff is made in basements and on the streets. Nothing is, they're not chemists putting these pills together. So they're just throwing all this stuff together. So even people buying, drugs online, older people that, want to use it recreationally or whatever, are buying these drugs online and getting drugs bought offline that have fentanyl in them. Most all of the drugs now on the street that are not prescribed by a doctor have a little bit of fentanyl in them because it gets these kids and people, not just kids. It's this drug does not discriminate, but it's getting people hooked. And so they buy more. It's also killing people. So you can buy one pill and split up the pill, and one portion of that pill can have fentanyl in it. And that one person could take a portion of the pill and die, and the other people not have any effect because the fentanyl can concentrate in one portion of the pill. So that's the scary thing is these kids, kids experiment. College is where a lot of kids obviously are exposed, mainly, high school, but college, it's everywhere. And these kids think, oh, I know this drug dealer and let's have fun tonight and let's go buy some pills. And they'll take the pills and, maybe tell their friends the next day, oh, so-and-so has pills. They're fine. We took them, have fun, whatever. And they buy and you don't know what you're getting. So you really, at this point in time, you can't experiment. You are really playing Russian roulette because you don't know what you're getting. It could be that one pill. And that's what happened with Jack, is that one pill. And he bought off online. This drug dealer had a site on Telegram. So these drug dealers, illegal drug dealers, have sites, shops set up on Telegram, and like legitimate shops, like buy whatever you want, and then Venmo. So that's how prevalent it is. So social media, these kids are exposed to all of that. It is so easy. You can get online and buy anything these days. So it's terrifying. And we found all this out because we hacked into Jack's computer and found the site, the shop that the drug dealer set up. The drug dealer was dealing out of on Collier Road.
Oh, wow.
Lived in the apartments off Collier, 24 years old. And so we've been heavily involved with the detectives and, prosecuting and all that. He's in jail now, but it's been, a lot working with them. But we want to ensure that he's off the streets so this tragedy doesn't happen to someone else.
Well, and for those listening, is in a very nice area of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And
been there for years.
Yeah, they have really. So did the owners know this, or is that?
I don't know about that. That's where they set up a drug bust, a sting operation, and bought drugs from him, and then they went and the SWAT team went in and did a drug bust in his apartment, which was right around the corner, and they found $500,000 worth of drugs, illegal drugs, guns, bulletproof vest. So we went to court after they caught him, and they had released him previously on bail. They weren't supposed to, not even on bail, excuse me. They just let him walk.
And what?
It was a magistrate judge who should not have heard the case, and they let him walk. Signature bond.
Wow.
And luckily we kept the pressure on, and his attorney had him turn himself back into jail. So he's in jail currently. still trying to get out on bond. So this is something that we'll be, dealing with for the next year or so.
So this is Jack's drug dealer. Angela was also on Nancy Grace. She's been trying to get, as I said, her message out, excuse me. And she said that Jack knew him from high school.
He went to North Atlanta. When they did the drug bust, they found his student ID. He's a little bit older than Jack, but we feel that there's probably, that connection, that's how he knew of him or something of that nature. But yeah, he's 24 years old. So when we went to court and saw him come out, this drug dealer come out in chains and the jumpsuit, it was, I can't even explain the range of emotions seeing this guy. The GBI is so backed up. They have thousands of cases every day. The GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, to test the drugs because we want to show that there was fentanyl in the drugs. And when they test the drugs, they only test one drug, like one pill.
Out of a whole big seizure, they only test one?
Yes, which is unfortunate with fentanyl because we know that it could not be in one, but be in another one. They decided to test a mushroom. The guy was selling mushrooms. And so they tested a mushroom and it didn't have the fentanyl in it. So we've gone back and said, please, we got to test more drugs because we know that there was fentanyl. And Jack thought he was taking a fake Xanax.
So tell us about that. Tell us about what happened to Jack.
Well, Jack had come home for Thanksgiving break and all the college kids all go out. I don't know what it is about the night before Thanksgiving, but
I was going to say, and was about to make a note to say something about that because the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving it's a thing and it's a bad thing. These kids go ahead.
It's been that way for years. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They come in town and it's just a big, let's get together and, they reunite with all their high school friends and all that. And so we have 6 kids. And so I track them all, on the phone, and they'd all come in, and Jack had spent the night out at a friend's house. He was only one. And so I'd wake up throughout the night just checking. And I looked on my phone about 3:00 and I saw that he was at his friend's house. Everybody was in, we knew where everybody was. All the rest of the kids were at the house. And so the next morning, we were getting ready for Thanksgiving, and it was Jack's favorite holiday, by the way, and all getting dressed, and Jack wasn't home. And this was about 10:00 in the morning. And so my husband called him and he didn't answer. He was always a big, loved to sleep in. So we didn't think anything of it, and called again, nothing. And so he called the parents and they were like, oh, we just stepped out. Come on over. We'll leave. The front door's unlocked, come on over. And so he went over there. It's literally right around the corner from where we live, and went in, and they were all asleep, or so he thought. And Jack didn't wake up. And he was cold, and fingers were blue. And Mike worked on him for 30 minutes, called the EMT, and in between that, he just called me, and just complete panic and horror and shock, and just screaming, he's gone, Jack won't wake up. So I rushed over there, and the EMT had just gotten there, and Mike was just absolutely disaster. It was horrific. And then the kids came over, and it was just, there's not any words to describe the horror and terror, and seeing your children just completely so traumatized. It was absolutely horrific, what we went through that day and what we continue to go through. Jack was larger than life. And he had a big heart and cared about everyone, had lots of friends, always trying to do the next right thing, straight A's. He was the pledge trainer this year at his fraternity and worked out every day. We had no idea. That's what's so shocking about all of this is you think, oh, he's had so much going for him. He's, could be your next door neighbor. He could be your child. Jack knew not to do drugs. He had no intention of ever taking his life or anything like that. And this fentanyl is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. And people say, oh, I heard your son overdosed. I don't call that an overdose. I call that a poison. He was poisoned. He made a mistake. He absolutely, people have said to me, well, he shouldn't have done drugs, and you can't blame school, and you can't, blame whoever. You can't blame the open border. You can't. And I'm certainly not blaming anyone. There is accountability and responsibility. He shouldn't have taken that pill. That's absolutely right. And he made a terrible decision. He made a really stupid mistake. And I don't believe that's dying should not be a consequence of making a really stupid mistake, being a teenager, being in college. And so I really, everybody needs to know about this. Everybody needs to talk to their kids. Everybody needs to know about Narcan. Narcan, which is known as naloxone, is a nose spray, and everybody needs to have it. Kids need to have it. Parents need to have it. It needs to be in kids' dorms rooms, in their houses, wherever they are, because minutes matter when somebody has the fentanyl in them. And I would love to say that kids aren't going to do drugs anymore, hearing my message. But I know kids, and I know college, and I've seen it, and we have kids in college, and it's all around. And so there's Narcan, which there's a site you can get on and get free Narcan. It's Georgia Harm Reduction. And you can log on and they will mail you free Narcan. You can also buy Narcan at the drugstore, at the grocery store. I actually prefer a different naloxone, which is 8 milligrams. It's an 8 milligram nasal spray, and it's made by Kluxxado, Kluxxado, and it's 8 milligrams. Usually when there is a poisoning like this, you have to do 2 doses of the nasal spray. So the Kluxxado is 1 dose because it's 8 milligrams. But everybody needs to have it because.
And you said Georgia Harm
Reduction.
I
think it's georgiaharmreduction.org, I believe. But if you put in Georgia Harm Reduction, it will pull up and you can get free Narcan. Yeah, so everybody needs to have that. And in fact, Kluxxado, we're working with them. We started a foundation for Jack to really educate and get the word out. And we are working with Kluxxado. They wrote a grant for us so that I can pass out Kluxxado when I do these talks, pass out Kluxxado to people so they can have it. But everyone needs to have it because it's not just kids. It's happening to 6-year-old people who are getting online and ordering drugs offline, thinking, oh, I need something for depression or whatnot. It's the fentanyl's in Adderall, Percocets. And I know kids, they start studying, get stressed out, and pass around the Adderalls. Oh, here. You can't take anything unless it comes from a doctor to you. I would say do not take any, you just can't chance it. And I would learn all the signs to look for when there is an overdose, unconsciousness, your pupils are very pinpoint pupils, trouble breathing, you can't wake up. So we just have to educate and talk about this. We're in a crisis and more kids are going to die. I got a call a few weeks ago. A kid was at a bar, bought a pill. Same thing happened, died.
And that was at a bar in Atlanta, right? Yeah. So the target audience of this podcast is college parents and college students. And I am imploring you to listen to what Angela's saying. I mean, again, scrubbed in sunshine, great kid. What there was he just made a mistake, and it was fatal. And so we've got to, as Angela said, we've got to talk to our kids, and we've got to say, let them know that it's, I mean, I'd never heard it was an Adderall. I did read it's in some vape pens.
It's in everything. It's terrifying. And
And
you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, 20 years ago, we're in college, 30 years ago, whatever that was, people experimented, and you're really taking a huge risk by experimenting now. You can't. It's just not worth it.
so how is it getting here?
Mexico.
And I read today, I sent you an article that there was, I know that there was a popular show about El Chapo. This was a while ago, but I believe it's El Chapo's son, or somebody was arrested today. And I think that was a big positive thing. It's not eradicating, and there's still so many other people out there doing this. But so explain that process. Or
Yeah, well, the cartels, there's so many, we're in Atlanta, but they're all over. I mean, they've infiltrated this country. We've got open borders, so people are just walking in. Fentanyl's coming in by the boatloads. They don't care. They don't care that they're killing people. That these drug dealers don't care. It's all to them. It's about making money. So that's a great step. That they're getting these cartel, leaders off the streets, but there's more. The drug's still here. So if it's not that cartel, it's another one. There's so many cartels. I work with DEA agents when I go and speak, and all of their statistics and information is crazy. I mean, they're here among us. It's not in some strange, big city. They're all over, these drug dealers. So that's a good first step, but we have to educate. We've got to start talking about this. We have to be prepared. I really want to push for education in schools. I don't know why there's no drug classes that are required in school. I don't know why. Why aren't we talking about this to our children? We talked about drunk driving and the effects of drunk driving. Why aren't we talking about fentanyl and what it's doing? I mean, every 5 minutes somebody's dying. How is that even possible in this country? It's mind blowing.
it really is.
So yeah, I really.
It's like a movie, like drug cartels, like I said, like the El Chapo show or movie or whatever it was, but it's not. It's here, and it's in our world, our universe. And, if you're listening out there and you're going to college, like, it's there. It's in your college.
It really is everywhere. They just put Clixado, a vending machine at Emory, and for this. And I mean, this naloxone needs to be in concert, like venues, concert venues, football stadiums. It needs to be that available because of this crisis that we're in. And I also want to mention, people, going into college are afraid. They may we hear about stories of kids doing drugs and they're afraid to call 911 because they don't want to get in trouble, but they are protected. There's the amnesty law here in Georgia, and you are protected. If you call 911 and are with somebody who's overdosed, you're not going to be prosecuted, or you're around drugs when you call them or they come, you will not be prosecuted. So that's something that's really important, because I've heard of stories where they've left people in bathtubs, or just left people because they don't want to, they're afraid they're going to get in trouble too. They don't know what to do, but always call 911, and you will not get in trouble. If you try to administer Narcan, you will not be prosecuted at all. The Narcan, I know I keep going back to it, but it's so easy to administer. It's a nose spray. You can't do anything wrong. You can't get hurt from it. If you don't need it, it's not going to have any effects. You are supposed to administer it and then turn them on their side, people on their side, but really get educated about what's going on. And especially these kids starting out into college, they're going to be exposed to all kinds of drugs. And people pass around Percocets, Xanax like it's candy. It really is that open and prevalent.
That's a very scary, sobering thought. And since I reached out to you, I look at these pictures of these girls going through Rush, and they're so full of hope, and I'm they're these beautiful, smart, all these amazing, just like Jack. And I have a pit in my stomach that this happened, that this is a possibility that's out there, that's so prevalent in this world. It's not like we're in the bowels of Mexico, or we're not in dark alleys. We're at nice apartments in college, or at parties, or at football games. I mean, this is what we do, and it's terrifying. And
it doesn't discriminate. This isn't just boys. It's happening to girls. There was a young girl at Dunwoody, I believe she was at Dunwoody High School, that just died, 15 years old, took a Percocet, what she thought was a Percocet, and died at school. So it was probably just pure fentanyl. They label, oh, it's a Xanax, but the amount of fentanyl that Jack had in his system, I'm certain that whatever he took was completely pure fentanyl. It was off the charts how much fentanyl was in his system. And it's a tiny bit, which is really scary. I mean, it's like the grain of sand. This fentanyl is a tiny little bit, and, instant.
Yeah, that medical examiner that was on Nancy Grace with you was showing the head of a pencil. And he said, just what will fit on there will kill you if it's
really scary. Yeah.
So how does it go from being good fentanyl? And Angela is an end-of-life doula for those. So she's seen this fentanyl when it's good. But so how does it go from being good fentanyl to being the tip of a pencil amount that can kill you?
Well, I mean, the fentanyl that is prescribed to you is, when you need it, is helpful.
Right.
What they're getting on the streets is not, there's no regulations, there's no,
Gotcha.
And it was originally coming from China to Mexico. And now I've heard recently that it's just, now China stopped doing that. It's just coming in from Mexico, and it's used as a filler to make more of the drug.
Gotcha. That's what you said.
So there's no regulation. It's just to produce more drugs is what they're using it for. It really is really evil that they're doing this, and people are dying every single day. And these families, it's heartbreaking. And unfortunately, there's going to be more, because these kids, they'll hear about the story and heard about Jack, and, that was Thanksgiving morning. And now we've got school starting back up. I'm sure that, people remember Jack, but they don't remember that story probably. They're out having a good time and partying, and they're going to be exposed to the drugs, and, oh, let's have fun, and it's fine. I saw my friend do this, or, that sort of thing. And you can't do that. Prior to the fentanyl, people would take pills and go have fun and whatever. I'm not saying that that's something you should do, but it had happened, it's happened in the past. I mean, drugs aren't something new, but the fentanyl is what is so dangerous. I don't think people were dying from a Xanax pill, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Now you can't take anything at all. One pill does kill.
And when you're drinking, your decision-making, just like you said, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, like drinking, that's why people, this is my opinion, but drink and drive, because they're drunk and they're deciding to drive. So it's the same thing. And that is such a good reason to have the Cloxado.
Yeah, Cloxado, Narcan. Yeah,
Narcan.
Naloxone is what the ingredient is.
Because even if you go out not intending to take a drug, then you've had a few bourbons or whatever, and then all of a sudden your decision-making ability is hampered. And so you take a pill, and that's when the Russian roulette comes in. That's when the gamble comes in, and it's going to happen. And hopefully we'll get this message out. I'm now all on board for Angela's mission.
And it's also, you can see somebody else doing it. So you need to have that, not just for you, but have it for if you're out at a football game and you see,
Right.
Somebody that's unconscious and, has all the symptoms, not breathing and all that. And you have the naloxone with you to administer it. That's what I'm saying. Everybody needs to have it. It's not just for you or your family, but who you're going to be around.
Yeah, that's a great point, because there are people who don't get out of their mind and decide to take a drug, even if they didn't intend to. But there are a lot of people who do, and having that could save someone else's life, even if that's not something that's in your world or you couldn't imagine doing it. And you very well may not, but someone next to you could, and you could save their life. And it's sounding like this is a very unfortunate part of our everyday world now.
It really is. It's really unfortunate. But for every 5 minutes, somebody dying in this country, you think about it, who you're around, going to the grocery store, going out at night to dinner or to a concert or a football game. I mean, I know we're talking about college age kids here, but it doesn't discriminate, this drug. So it can be a 50-year-old man, going to a bachelor party or, you name it. It doesn't matter. This fentanyl is in everything. And people that go out and experiment or, have some drinks and, hey, let's do this. It can happen, and it is happening. And it's going to continue to happen until real change happens with the border, with, education, catching all these cartels, really cracking down. So.
And I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he was talking about a friend who was anxious, and this was just like on a Sunday. And his friend was like, "Oh, I have some Xanax, that I got." And he was about to take it. And I mean, that's not even going out or being at an event. That's just sitting in your house on a Sunday thinking, "Oh, I'm anxious. Maybe I would like a Xanax to chill out." And it's not prescribed, and it's not from a doctor. And so, yeah, that's
scary. And these kids are getting on all kinds of social media. I mean, the fact that this drug dealer had a shop set up, and he's not the only one, a shop set up that's just so easy for anybody to get. And then Venmo. It's just very brazen.
You said Telegram. What is that?
Telegram is a social media platform.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know about that.
So look into that. Yeah, it's that. Snapchat they have, that Snapchat's the worst because you send something and it erases, so you can't track anything. But these drug dealers don't care. They're so brazen. And I mean, the fact that the drug dealer had a Venmo account, it's just baffling.
And you found that when you when you hacked into Jack's computer, that he had Venmo'd him?
Yes. Yes.
So the overwhelming message I'm hearing is education and having this Narcan, and it's really scary and awful, and you've lived it. So is there anything else that you want to say about, I mean, you've said a lot, you've said so much, and I think that anybody listening should talk to their schools, talk to their coaches, and get Narcan, have Narcan, and let's try to educate everybody about this.
Absolutely. And I what I'd like to say to all these kids starting out in college is, and this comes from Jack. So, be the best that you can be. Life is so short, and it's so not worth it to be out one night and just to try a pill just for fun. It's just not worth it. And enjoy life, have set goals, take care of your body, eat right, exercise, love your family, communicate, and have fun. Have a great time. College is an amazing time before you go out on your own. And just know that, it's interesting. On the Nancy Grace show, I talked about the analogy of in the Bible, how Jesus died so that you may live. And I didn't get all of that out correctly on the Nancy Grace show. And so people, have said stuff like, oh, you think Jack is Jesus and all this. Anyways, the point is I really do feel like Jack was here on this earth plane on a mission. He accomplished so much at such a young age and did so much good. And I really feel that he needed to go to set an example, not only for our family, for his siblings that he loved so much, but for all his friends and anyone that he came into contact with and anybody that I can reach by speaking. I'm doing all this in hopes to save a life, to have somebody maybe question taking that pill, to saying, oh, I Jack, think about Jack. And he was just your next door neighbor, and the fact that he's gone at 20 years old is, it's so surreal, but it's real. This is real. This is life. And just think about kind of, when you go out at night, what your choices are, and make good choices.
Make good choices and be prepared for those who don't.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for, this was 8 months ago that Jack died. My admiration and gratitude to you is, I don't know. Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for trying to save others. Thanks to Jack for saving others. And I am so grateful you were here today. And I will do anything I can to spread this word. So thank you.
I really appreciate it, Trisha. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'd be honored to speak really to anybody. I'm speaking at schools. I'll be up at University of Georgia in August. I've spoken at churches. I'll speak to anybody about this. If it can save a life, I'm all for it. We've got to all come together and especially us moms come together. Y'all love your babies up, because you just never know, and life is so short. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here. Take care. Welcome to Time Out with Trisha. Because can you really give advice if you don't speak about yourself in the third person? I don't think so. This is exactly how I speak to my clients. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Now let's get into it. First and foremost, don't do drugs. Period. The risk is so elevated now with any drug. I have heard that even vape pens can be laced with fentanyl. I get it. College is a time to experiment, but the times when you can experiment with drugs with any semblance of safety are gone. So don't do drugs. But if you are around people that are doing drugs, or if you make a bad decision when you're drinking and you end up taking something that you wouldn't normally take, life-saving medications like Narcan, or as Angela shared, Clexado, can help save someone's life, including your own. It's very easy to get. It's nasal spray, as Angela said, and everyone should have it in their backpacks, in their dorm rooms. You should carry it to games, parties, whatever. So if you do see someone who is showing signs of having fentanyl poisoning or overdosing, use it. Second, even if you don't do drugs, you don't have to do anything that you're not comfortable with to fit in. So I had a client once who didn't drink a lot in high school. She got a bid from her first choice sorority and she went out that night, bid nights, big party night, found herself in the basement of a fraternity house doing shots and drinking. She drank so much that she threw up. So she woke up the next morning and she called her mom to get her. And she said, sorority life is not for me. This is not the right sorority for me. And I don't want to be a part of Greek life. Her mom came to get her. She spent some time at home. And I convinced her to call the president of the sorority she had just pledged and talk to her and say, this happened midnight. I wasn't comfortable with it. I drank way too much. I was way out of my comfort zone. And I just don't think that this is for me. The president was very grateful that she reached out to her and nobody got in trouble, but she explained to my client that she can be a part of this group and not compromise her values, the things that she wanted to do, and that it was more about her not recognizing that she could not drink than being pressured by people that were in the sorority. She ended up staying in the sorority and is now very active and is part of new member education, where she explains to people, tells them her story, and explains that you don't have to do these things to fit in. You can still be yourself and you can be a part of a group and still stay true to what you're comfortable with, your values, and how you want your college experience to go. Like Angela said, it should be fun, but take care of yourself. And that's it for Time Out with Trisha. We'll see you on another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. For additional Rush tips, updates, and more, please follow me on Instagram at Rush with Confidence. If you would like to reach out to us or for more information, please email info@madrushpod.com. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry and Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Trisha Adams.